This is a modern basic crossbow. Crossbows first appeared in China around 600 BC. For the next 2,000 years, these were the weapon of choice for the foot soldier. Easily mass-produced, this weapon allowed military leaders to arm their foot soldiers with weapons that killed at a distance, which required little training, were very accurate. The ammunition was cheaper than traditional archery arrows, and they were easier to produce, and they were easier to cock than the traditional archery bowstring of the day. Crossbows were the first rapid-fire weapons. Over 1,000 years ago, crossbows were built using a vertical gravity-fed magazine to load a crossbow bolt, or, as they were called in medieval days, a quarrel, every time the string was cocked back into the firing position. Some magazines could hold as many as 20 bolts at a time. Once the gunpowder rifle appeared, the crossbow finally lost its popularity as the most common weapon of war. As you can see, a crossbow is a marriage between a traditional archery bow and a rifle. With a crossbow, you are able to draw back the string and lock it into place until needed, unlike the traditional archery bow, which you have to physically hold back while waiting or placing your shot. A crossbow has a trigger, just like a rifle does, so that you can fire your weapon when you have it aimed in the right direction. A crossbow gets its power by pulling back on the string, which bends the limbs backward, and then when the string is locked into place, all the stored energy is ready to use. Because crossbow limbs are so stiff, it takes a great deal of strength to manually pull the string back. Therefore, most people use a rope cocking device to pull the string back. In the beginning, this was performed by a lever hooked onto a couple knobs on the side of the stock. You would pull its handle back and the mechanics of leverage to draw the string back. Nowadays, most people either use a rope cocking device or a crank cocking device to draw the string back into place. Because the limbs are so stiff, the string doesn't need to be pulled back as far to equal the speed of a traditional bow. While a traditional archery bows at a strong pull of 60 pounds can shoot at speeds of up to 200 feet per second, a crossbow can easily exceed 150 to 400 feet per second. Another aspect that makes crossbows desirable to military leadership was that it was a weapon that could be accurately used from a seated or kneeling position. In either of these positions, you made yourself a smaller target for the enemy to hit, unlike the traditional bow, which is operated while standing. Since crossbows have components that are found on a rifle, along with components found on a traditional bow, as well as components that are unique to crossbows, this lesson is going to be an explanation of the basic components of a modern crossbow. Since archery has been around the longest, let's begin with the crossbow components that come from archery. The limbs are stiff and hold considerable power when bent. Originally made from wood, sinew, and other materials, today's limbs are usually made of fiberglass, carbon, or metal to provide a stiffer and more durable limb. Limb tips are located at the ends of the limbs. These are notched so that they can hold the string in place. Because the vibration of the string against the notches is so strong, these notches, if they were part of the actual limb, would soon be cut through. Plastic limb tips that slide over the ends of your limbs provide a firm seating for your string. They can easily be replaced if broken, unlike having to replace the entire limb when it breaks instead of the string. Just like a traditional archery bow, the crossbow string is made up of multiple strands of waxed string. At the end of the string is a reinforced loop of string that is attached to one end of the limb. In the middle is the reinforced section that contacts your crossbow bolt. This section is reinforced because it comes in contact with your bolt and the rail. Reinforcing keeps the string from wearing out too soon. Ammunition, or crossbow bolts. With crossbows, we use a much shorter arrow that we call a bolt. In the beginning, the ammunition was much shorter than today, being closer to a dart of only 6 to 10 inches. Modern bolts are made up of 6 components. The shaft. This is the backbone of the bolt. The nock fits inside the shaft. This is the part that is pushed by your string. There are 2 common types of nocks, half moon and flat. Your manufacturer will let you know which is the correct type to use with your crossbow. Do not go against their advice. Fletching. The fletching are the 3 fins. Originally, these were made out of wood that keep your bolt flying straight through the air. The fletching blades are referred to as vanes, fins, or feathers. The index fin is the odd-colored fin of the 3. This fin is pointed downward when the bolt is correctly placed. If you are using half-moon nocks, you will want to make sure that the index fin is pointing downward and the notch is aligned with the string. The insert fits inside the other end of the shaft. Made of either plastic, aluminum, or brass, this bolt component is threaded on its interior to secure our last component into place. Tips. The last component of the bolt is the tip. There are a wide variety of different tips that you can put into the insert. Most common of these is known as the field tip. Field tips are bullet-shaped and are usually used for practicing since they come back out of the target, making them reusable. Another tip is called the broadhead. Because of its widely flared point, once it goes inside the target, it is designed to not come back out. Usually these are used by hunters. Another variation is known as a decocking bolt. This is a wide tip that is designed to prevent itself from making very deep penetration into the target. Usually this is used to decock your crossbow without shooting a normal bolt into anything. This is something you might need to do if you are finished hunting for the day and don't want to waste a bolt or potentially frighten your game. Use this rather than dry firing your crossbow. Now let's take a look at the components that a rifle has. To begin with, we have the stock. The stock is the backbone of your crossbow. Everything is going to be attached to it one way or another. Let's look at the components of the stock. This is the butt. You put the butt of the stock against your shoulder to brace it. The butt of the stock may occasionally have a cheek piece to lean your cheek against when bracing the butt against your shoulder. This is the trigger. The trigger is what holds our cocked string into place until we squeeze it and release the string, which then pushes our bolt towards its target. Triggers can vary in how much force it takes to actually release the string. The tug or resistance that you feel when first starting to squeeze the trigger and before the shot is fired is known as creep. Some triggers have very little creep, while others feel like forever before the shot is finally released. Trigger pull typically varies between 2 and 5 pounds. Even though the crossbow holds the string back until you are ready to fire, there is still the possibility that you might accidentally pull the trigger prematurely. That is why crossbows have this, a safety switch. In most cases, the safety switch will automatically lock themselves into the safe position when you cock the string. However, as a matter of safe practice, you will always want to confirm that the safety switch is in the safe position until you are ready to fire. When the safety switch is in the safe position, you will not be able to pull the trigger back. When the safety switch is in the fire position, this weapon is now live and you can pull the trigger and fire the weapon. The sight rail is where you can mount your scope instead of using an iron sight. Sight rails can come in a variety of styles, allowing you to mount additional equipment besides your scope. For instance, a laser light or perhaps a mini flashlight. The sight rail often has a dovetail groove at its base that is used with the rope cocking device. The scope is what you will be using to aim your crossbow. There are a wide variety of scopes on the market, each with its own features, whether it's a price or the features that it has. It is important, though, that you get a scope that is designed for crossbows. There is a very good reason for this. Crossbow scopes are set up with a starting range of 20 yards on up to 100. This is based on the shorter range of crossbow bolts versus the longer range of bullets. Most bullet or rifle-based scopes are going to start at 100 yards away and farther. The forearm, or finger pass-through, is how you are going to support your crossbow and keep it from dipping down. Most of them will cause you to keep your fingers from sticking up into the path of the string where they can be injured. Some crossbows even have an extra flange to prevent you from being able to put your fingers into harm's way. Now let's take a look at parts that are specific to the crossbow. The rail sits on top of the front half of your stock. Gun owners might think of this as the barrel of the crossbow. It has a trough that runs down its length. This rail is used to guide your bolt on its path. The trough in the center is where your index fin sits, pointing downwards. The shaft of your bolt lies in the trough and extends just beyond the end of the rail so that you can use whatever shape of tip you want without interfering with the flight path of the bolt. The dovetail is this notch at the back of the rail. This notch is used to hook your rope cocking device onto. Not all crossbows have this, and some offer crank cocking devices or rope sleds that use the stock, rail, or rail trough for cocking assistance. The stirrup. The stirrup sits on the front end of the stock. You put your foot into the stirrup and use it to hold the crossbow in place when you are bending over and drawing the string back. Always make sure that you have your foot firmly in place and that you are standing with your weight on that foot. You don't want to have it slip loose and have a partially stretched back crossbow come flying it back into your face. The clip, also known as a retainer clip or retention clip, sits above the trigger assembly and under the scope rail. The clip is used to hold your bolt in place on the rail and in front of your string in the ready position. This clip holds the bolt in place so that you can keep your fingers out of the way. Some manufacturers use brushes instead of a clip that presses the bolt down. Although not physically attached to the crossbow, the rope cocking device is frequently used to draw your string back. Thanks to the mechanics of leverage, the rope cocking device reduces the amount of muscle it takes to draw the string back in half. And now for this quick message. In summary, this concludes our lesson on the components of a modern basic crossbow. For more information not included in this tutorial, see the sequel, Crossbow Components Part 2, Advanced Anatomy. In that video, we will look into the components that make up a compound crossbow. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up so I can score a hit, and subscribe to this channel for additional lessons on crossbows. Please leave your comments below and I will try to reply as soon as possible. Thank you for watching and enjoy your crossbow.